On today's Andy Ari On3 presented by BetMGM, we talk Lane Kiffin's choice, and we talk about it with Chris Lowe from On3, who has talked to Nick Saban about what Lane Kiffin has to decide between, which is probably staying at Ole Miss or going to Florida or maybe even going to LSU. And Chris has a lot of insight on this because he's also talked to Lane Kiffin very recently about his situation at Ole Miss, about his career, about how he got to this point. So very interesting discussion with Chris Lowe about Lane Kiffin, the LSU job, the Florida job, the Ole Miss job, what it all means. Also, it is a Megaboard Wednesday. So we got message board posts guiding the conversation. And oh man, are there some doozies? We got one from Warchant about a guy that at least a few Florida State fans would like to see as their next head coach if they make a change. We've also got one from the VolQuest message board where they saw an interesting name pop up on the LSU hot board. And got one from the Notre Dame message board, maybe a little bit of I told you so about Brian Kelly. We'll talk about all of that on today's Andy Ari on 3. We are presented by BetMGM. We use BetMGM lines and totals. And you can join us by joining BetMGM. If you have not signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code CFB as in college football, CFB, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how that works. Download the BetMGM app and sign on using the bonus code CFB. Deposit at least $10 to place your first wager on any game. You'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code CFB when you're signing up. So download the app, deposit at least $10, place your first wager, up to $1,500 if your first bet loses. Use the bonus code CFB when you sign up. Make this college football season one for the history books. Make it legendary with BetMGM. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers are not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona. Call 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. Call 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa or 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code CFB and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3, Megaboard Wednesday, and oh my, are there so many Megaboard posts. We're actually going to start with an On3 story that produced posts probably on boards across the network, and that's Chris Lowe's story where he talked to Nick Saban about the LSU job, the Florida job, what Lane Kiffin should do, the choice he has ahead. It was incredible. This is Ari, I'm very much enjoying working with Chris because he's the guy who's like, I wonder what Nick Saban thinks about this. Let's just call Nick Saban, and Nick Saban will give me a very unfiltered opinion about all of this stuff.
Yeah, I think we found out today that Nick Saban listens to our show. So, we've been talking about this
or maybe we listen to Nick Saban. I think it's probably the other way around. I kind of trust his opinions on things.
But it did kind of echo a lot of the things that we had been discussing on the show about job hierarchy and the illusion of, what's a no doubt about it reason to jump and what places actually are high ceiling places that aren't traditionally viewed that way. It was a super interesting story. I think everybody should go read it. Anytime Nick Saban opens his mouth and offers an opinion about college football, it's certainly worth, giving heed to. Is that the way to say that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the LSU job is interesting because I feel like it stands above the rest for a variety of different reasons in a way that 90% of other jobs don't. Like every single,
you mean all of the jobs, not the
entire country.
Yeah.
If you do an off-season list in 2025, 2020, 2015, 2010, 2005, it doesn't matter what's happening in the state of college football. It doesn't matter who else is good. It doesn't matter anything. NIL, transfer portal, whatever you want to throw at it. LSU is a top 3 job in America on those lists unrelentingly and consistently, no matter what. So, like, when you start getting into, and like, I don't want to offend Florida fans because I do think that Florida's a great job. And I know that they have Lane Kiffin as the apple of their eye. And if it's not Lane, it's going to be a disappointment. But like, LSU stands above Florida, it stands above Penn State. It probably stands, shoulder to shoulder with Ohio State and Texas, even as 2 of the best jobs or 3 of the best jobs in the entire sport. So, I think this entire discourse about what LSU can offer as opposed to Ole Miss, what can LSU offer as opposed to Florida? Like, what is the sales pitch from Florida and Ole Miss to try to outweigh what LSU can offer you? And it might just be, where do you think you'll be happiest? Because I don't know from a college football tactical standpoint what the answer to that question is.
You just mentioned Ohio State. And while we're talking about Ohio State, I do want to point out, you and I are going to Columbus this weekend with Modelo. So grab yourself a Modelo. Stay game day ready all season long. Come grab a Modelo with us in Columbus. Saturday morning, we will be in the Panera lot off 300 West Lane Avenue at the Modelo activation. We're going to be doing a pregame show. So come say hi. Maybe we'll talk a little bit on the show. Maybe we'll get you on the show if you want to come by. But we will be there, and we'll be hanging out before the game, before Ohio State plays Penn State. So come see us with Modelo. Stay game day ready. We will be game day ready. We will be with Modelo. So come see us at the Panera lot, 300 West Lane Avenue in Columbus Saturday morning.
How many hours of my life were spent in that parking lot restaurant?
I imagine a lot, because
weeks.
I've been a beat writer who spent a lot of hours in the local Panera. So, and that Panera is right next to Ohio State's campus, possibly the largest Panera in the world. I think it might be.
It's a pretty large Panera, and I have thought at the time, like, you're on Lane Avenue, which is literally the outskirt of the campus. I mean, you can walk from that restaurant to the stadium in 4 minutes. How much that real estate costs. But it also is the closest restaurant with a bunch of seating and reliable internet that's to the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, which is where interviews and Ohio State practices. So a large portion of the beat core either goes there or the McDonald's on Olentangy River Road, which is in the other direction. I spent many hours and gained many pounds at both of those restaurants.
Well, Panera, I believe, does not serve alcohol, but they need to start selling Modelo.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine if you could get a Modelo at Panera?
Yeah, we're going to be playing it in the parking lot. So I can't wait to, have a discussion about that there. Talk about Ohio State to return to a city that I called home for a decade. I can't wait. It's going to be hopefully a good game. But either way, we'll make it entertaining.
We absolutely will. So come see us. Panera lot, 300 West Lane Avenue in Columbus on Saturday morning before the Penn State game. All right, Ari, let us talk about
the joys of a bread bowl. Sorry.
And nothing like a bread bowl on a crisp fall afternoon. All right.
What is the most American invention of all time?
The bread bowl is one. Did we invent fake boobs?
Maybe. I don't know that. That's something that maybe China could have done. They're always ahead of us technologically.
Well, I'm not sure. We did invent giant coaching buyouts. That's for damn sure. And you just paid one, agreed to one with Brian Kelly. Florida just agreed to one with Billy Napier. So they need new coaches. They probably want the same guy. That guy's at Ole Miss. Ole Miss wants to keep him. So let's talk to Chris Lowe about Lane Kiffin. And Chris just talked to Nick Saban about Lane Kiffin and the decision he faces. And it is a fascinating discussion. Chris with a great story, as usual. We get a lot of those from Chris. But you talked to Nick Saban about the LSU job, about what Lane Kiffin has to choose from, which would be probably stay at Ole Miss, go to Florida, maybe go to LSU. And I found it very interesting, Chris, what Nick Saban had to say, because it wasn't as cut and dried as it used to be.
No, and Nick's never been one to sort of hold back on what he thinks, and having known him now for 2 decades, so I wasn't surprised. No one's adapted or evolved more than he has, and he understands what it takes now. He may not like it, but he understands what it takes now to win at the highest level, and he was pretty blunt. You better have money are people willing to pony up a lot of money to build your roster. And that's what it's about. And now it's not the only thing, but as he said, it's the most important thing. And you look at some of the payrolls, I guess, can we call them payrolls? That's what they are.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Over this year and last year, LSU wasn't necessarily toward the top. Neither were Alabama or Georgia. And I think that's when you're a blue blood like that, you still have some built-in advantages. I was talking to Lane a few weeks ago. He pointed that out. There are always going to be those advantages at a place like an Ohio State or a Georgia, even in Alabama. But Ole Miss has stepped it up and spent a ton of money, certainly in the transfer portal the last couple of years, and I think that will weigh in. The other scenario, someone pointed out this to me, just Andy Ari, as you guys asked me to come on, what if FSU fires Mike Norvell? There's another one, and I think that's sort of been floated out there. Listen, Lane was going to Florida State 2 years ago. I say he was going. He was the top target 2 years ago had Norvell taken the Alabama job, and they were ready to pounce. FSU was. Now, he had to say yes. He had to pull the trigger. He had not been able to do that the year before at all when Auburn came calling, but certainly he was right there or would have been right there in the middle of it. I think, whatever my opinion's worth, that the FSU job, if you get it right, the right person, you probably got an easier pathway to the playoff than you do at LSU or Florida.
The thing that always stands out to me about this discussion is obviously how much money you can spend is important on your players, right? But having paid attention to this for, the last 3 years and as it's evolved, isn't how much you've spent on your players kind of a moving target? Like, what's true 1 year for one program isn't always true the following year for the same program. You've seen teams, spend a lot more when they've, how can you quantify that if you're a coaching candidate of like, here's X number of dollars I'm going to have, or is that kind of an unpredictable metric?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And look at Ole Miss. They spent last year somewhere around 14 million, maybe 15 million on its roster. Great defensive talent, one of the best defenses in the country. You had a quarterback that they paid a ton of money to keep in Jackson Dart, and they didn't make the playoff. This year, I don't know if they spent quite that much money, and they might make the playoffs. So it's not a guarantee. And I think other factors, and talking to Nick yesterday, he pointed them out that when you're in a state like Louisiana, LSU, or Georgia, or Florida, where the recruiting base is so fertile, there's not as much pressure year in and year out to live in the portal. That's tough. That's a tough existence, every year to hit it just right in the portal. And you're not going to find a Trinidad Chambliss every year in the portal from Ferris State. And give Lane and his staff, the Joe Judges of the world, all the Billy Glasgow, the guys he brought in there that are sort of part of that group that look and try to find guys that fit, because it's not always maybe the highest rated guy, much like recruiting out of high school, but guys at key positions that fit. And boy, Ole Miss has been terrific at that the last few years. Walker Jones, who heads up their collective, been a big part of it. And I don't think you can diminish when you have it going like that. When you start, to your question, Ari, about looking at jobs. I'll say this, though, having been a dinosaur and having covered this league for a long time, there's something to be said when you're at a place like LSU and you can walk out on your porch, front porch, back porch, your deck, and you got all these great players who grow up in a state dying to play for LSU. You are the flagship school there in that state. Those kids, as one coach told me yesterday, they're homegrown. You got Florida and Georgia. Andy, you probably can speak to this. You got a lot of people moving into those states when they're a little bit older. They don't grow up necessarily wanting to be Gators or Seminoles or Bulldogs. In Louisiana, they do. And the high school coaches, Jacob Hester made a great point. I hadn't thought of this, but he said there's some high schools in the state of Louisiana, coaches, they won't even let you in the gym or the football complex if you don't have some type of tie to that state and to LSU. So I think that means a lot. And it's why I know, Andy, you rated LSU number one among the available jobs. I've talked to a ton of people, have been around it. It would be one of them. If someone said, hey, who are the 3 jobs you would consider ranking number 1? LSU would be one of those 3 for me.
You're talking about out of all of them, not just the ones that are available.
Right, all the jobs.
Yeah.
I think Ohio State, LSU, and then
Georgia.
we can sit here and argue a lot about Georgia and Alabama and Florida.
Texas?
Maybe Texas. But, you're fighting, again, this is not me saying it. You're in Texas, you're fighting tons and tons of schools who are coming into Texas. A&M's there, Oklahoma's there. A lot of other schools will come in there. Louisiana, I went back and looked at some of the greatest players in school history at LSU. The large majority of them are from the state of Louisiana. And there are a few. Patrick Peterson was not from there. But, you go back, guys, 40 years, and most of those guys, most of the big names are homegrown kids. And I think if you get the money, which they did step it up this year, which is so head-scratching that they didn't play any better. I mean, they've spent around $18 million at the top transfer portal in the class, which shows you they're willing to do it. And I think it gets back to the person. Who can that person, if it's Lane, if it's anybody else, can they come in there and galvanize the money people? Can they give them the kind of confidence and the kind of trust? Hey, all right, I'm going to fork over $2-3 million because I think this guy is a guy that can take the money, do the evaluations, get the right people in here, and get us to a national championship. I think the third caveat is this. To me, seeing is believing when you start talking about jobs. And every coach, all 3 coaches before Brian Kelly, won a national title at LSU. 2 of them Hall of Famers. Nick Saban, is Les already in the Hall of Fame? I'm not sure he is or not.
They've just changed the record requirements, so he may be able to get in now. He was in a point where the Kansas record was going to keep him out.
Okay,
so
you're right. That's right.
Yeah.
So, and Les was a little quirky, as we all know, but certainly had a great run. And remember, he played for a second national title there. They still got a raw deal in 11. They go unbeaten. They beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Then they got to play them again in the rematch. I think if they play anybody but Alabama that year, they win another one. And then, of course, that O's run in 2019 with one of the greatest seasons we've seen in the SEC. So, again, seems believing. You've had 3 guys do it over the last 2 decades. To me, that counts for something.
If you're Ole Miss and you want to pitch Lane Kiffin on why your job is better, where do you start?
I think the fact that they have stepped it up over the last few years, and they're all in. Now, again, you've got Mississippi State there in that state, but there's a lot of good football players. And if you keep 80% of the best players in that state and go out and really mine the portal, and they've proven they'll do that already, they'll go out and they'll spend tons of money for guys who are looking to cash in. They've proven they will do that. And he's won. He's proven he's won 10 games now, 3 different times? Go back and count how many times they've done that at Ole Miss in the last 50, 60 years. So he's done things that never been done there. Lane genuinely likes living there. And I think that's something else they would sell him on. I was with Lane for, an hour or so a couple of weeks ago there in his office. He likes his quality of life there. He likes the fact that his family is around him. He likes the way the people treat him. He is really grateful to Keith Carter. Lane will tell you, man, when he came in 20 there weren't many people knocking on his door to be a head coach when he left Florida Atlantic. Keith believed in him. Keith stuck his neck out. I think there were some people there very tied into that program who didn't want him. And Keith did and gave him a shot. And I think that's something that Lane has always remembered. Now, none of this means he won't leave. And I want to be very clear on that. People are pinning me down. I know they are, you guys too. Do you think he'll leave? I've had 4 text messages this morning from people who read Nick's comments. Well, that means he's not leaving. No, that doesn't mean that. You know what it means? It means it'd be good to be Lane Kiffin right now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, here's what Nick said to you, and I found it very interesting because I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Nick said, jobs that weren't great jobs before are now. Lane is the first name up for Florida and the first name up for LSU, but I think you can have a long debate on whether either of those jobs is actually better than the job he has now, because he has some guys over there at Ole Miss that give him pretty much whatever he wants from a roster standpoint. Maybe you've got alumni who are passionate about football, but are they willing to invest what you have to invest now to win, because a lot of people don't believe in this shit. And Chris, I was thinking about that, and not just in the context of they'll give Lane what he wants from a roster standpoint. Lane has a level of control at Ole Miss that I don't believe he would have at Florida or LSU. And I think that's something you've got to consider.
Yeah, and I guess the unknown there, Andy, and it's your school. You would know Florida, the inner workings there better than I would. Does a guy like Lane Kiffin, who is such a commodity right now, does he change that a little bit?
Maybe.
Does he change that a little bit at LSU? You know, the governor obviously very involved at LSU. I had 180 said, hey, I think that's a good thing. Some people might, but if you've got a governor in your state and you're a one-school state, essentially like LSU is, you know, you're going to be able to get things done there because he is so passionate about football that you might not otherwise. I mean, you're at Alabama, then Auburn's going to say, well, hey, if they're getting this, we want it.
Yeah.
You know, Mississippi State's, well, if Ole Miss is getting
Florida's
it,
the same way too.
Yeah. So I don't know. And I guess that's unknown in all this. Would, you know, are LSU and Florida so, I shouldn't say desperate, but are they to the point now where they're like, listen, we got a chance to get a guy who's clearly a difference maker, a guy that is at the top of the food chain, so to speak, as far as available coaches. One of them, not maybe the, but certainly one of them, a guy who's made a difference everywhere he's been. Nick Saban, as much as Lane was a pain in Nick's ass when he was there, Nick will be the first one to tell you that he was a huge part of getting their offense where they needed to get it to. You know, he goes to Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic hadn't done anything. He wins conference championships. He comes to Ole Miss. Now, they'd have some success under Houston Nutt, some success under Hugh Freeze, but certainly not to this degree. And he's just got that type of personality where people want to jump on board. They want to dive in. I don't know what you would call it. You know, Lane gives me a hard time because on the E60 documentary, I said he was an acquired taste. Well, he is an acquired taste for a lot of people. You know, I happen to have known him for a long time and enjoy being around him, but I also know that sort of who he is. Some people don't ever really acquire that taste, but he is somebody that is, I think when you talk about, you guys tell me 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, you know, some people call it street cred. They want to be around a guy like that. They want to play for a guy like that, who's a bite back type of personality. And I think that permeates a little bit of your money people. And there may be some of the get off my lawn type crowd who say, well, no, we don't want that. But I promise you, if you want to win, and most of these guys want to win, you want somebody that you feel like, all right, if I'm going to pony up this kind of cash, they're going to be able to go get players that are difference makers. And I think Lane Stoney can do that.
I've been dying to ask you this. I kind of brought it up to Andy a little bit, but when you look at how much money LSU is going to have to pay, you know, in buyout, I know it's still not 100% sure given what happens with Brian Kelly and where he ends up next, but it's a lot of money. Florida's paying up a lot of money. Do you feel like because of the bidding and the bidding war that's going to have to happen to either get or retain Lane Kiffin, that those two programs are making the correct financial decision in getting him, if that means buyout money plus $15 million to a coach who may do it this year but has yet to win a Power 4 conference title?
Yeah, well, that's a fair question. I think Lane's contract is pretty friendly as far as what kind of buyout he would owe, if I'm not mistaken. You know, Alabama paid
$4 million, I think.
What is it, Andy?
I believe it's $4 million.
Yeah, Bama paid $12 million to get Kalen DeBoer, which is, so that's 3 times as much as what LSU or Florida or anybody else would have to pay Lane. But no, to your question about not having won a championship or that type of thing, I think that is something is schools debate. Hey, we just paid Billy $21 million. We just paid Kelly, whatever it is, $40, $50 million. Are we really going to pay $13 million, $12 million, whatever it's going to cost to get him? And let me add, I'm glad you asked that, Ari. I've talked to Lane about this ad nauseum over the last few years. The money thing, he's already making what, $9 or $10 million at Ole Miss. I know he said this. He is not driven by money. That will not be a factor in his decision. But I do believe that it's fair to ask, if you're a school, are we going to invest this much money in a coaching salary of a guy that hasn't won a national title? I mean, listen, people like to gang up on Jimbo Fisher, and I get it. But when Texas A&M paid him all that money, he'd won a national title at Florida State. He's one of few active coaches at that time who'd actually won a national title.
And when A&M fired him, they didn't turn around and win the most expensive bidding war of an open market coach maybe in the history of the sport either. It's that and top of how expensive it's going to be to get Lane.
Yeah, and remember too, the other caveat there in the whole A&M deal is it was done. They were going to hire Mark Stoops, and you had a revolt, whatever you want to call it, pushback among boosters. No, we're not going to do that, and they turned to Mike Elko, and I think Mike sat on the tarmac there in his plane for an hour or two. He didn't know what he was going to do. He was going to leave Duke to come to A&M. I think he had some real questions about it. So it's not as easy to hire a guy at these places where if you don't win at the highest of highs, that they're going to fire you in a couple of years. Now, one source that I trust implicitly told me as I was writing the story, he did point out at Florida that they hung in there, no matter what you believe about Billy Napier, they hung in there pretty good with Billy. And
they did.
A lot of people thought, Andy, I know we were both at the Texas A&M game last year, that he was done after that loss. And he had some key people that saved him, and they gave him another shot. He never lost his locker room. And they came back and they played really good football last year toward the end of the season. Now, that didn't translate over to this year, but they did, a lot of schools at a lot of places, he would have been gone. I mean, Jacob Hester, I don't know if you saw his quote in the story. He said, "Hey, we have 3 losing seasons around here. They burn this place to the ground." And coaches, coaches, that is a part of coaches' mindsets. I'll say Lane told me, he says, the one thing that he says, I hear that a lot, that, well, if you go there, they might fire you. The expectations are unrealistic. He says, listen, he said, I would be miserable, way more miserable than any fan or any money guy if I went somewhere and we weren't winning. So that doesn't, I don't think that moves the needle at all with him, because he's confident. He's a confident dude. He just wants to win. He wants to win at the highest level. He wants to win national championships. I do think the way he looks at jobs and life, he's still Lane Kiffin. He's still going to be. There's a reason, and I remind him of this. There's a reason his mom called him Helicopter when he was little, because he does like to stir it up everywhere he is. But he is as competitive gets. And if he thinks that whether it's staying at Ole Miss or they're going to Florida or going to LSU, he's got a better chance year in and year out to build a championship level roster. Then I think that is going to be the most important component to him wherever he goes. And the family thing, he loves the fact that Chris, his brother, and his family are there. He loves, Layla, his ex-wife, is back, and they're sort of co-raising Knox, who's playing high school football. But listen, there's no reason that all those people won't go with him or wouldn't go with him to Florida or LSU. In fact, I think they would. His daughter, Landry, will be a senior, or is a senior, I think, at Ole Miss. She's got about 1 year left. So I love the interaction. I love the debate and the fighting that's going on among the Ole Miss fan base, the LSU fan base, the Florida fan base about what's a better job, why Lane would or wouldn't leave. The only person who knows that, where he's leaning, and I really believe him when he tells me that he learned from what happened with the Auburn deal, and he is not looking ahead. That he owes it to this team and that fan base to coach this team as hard and as well as he possibly can the rest of the year. I believe him. He was very passionate about that when we talked about it. But nobody knows what he's going to do. He might know. Jimmy Sexton might know. But other than that, anybody who says they know, I've had about 20 people tell me they got sources. Everybody's got a source, right? Got a source in administration at Ole Miss. Got a source at Florida. I live down the street from Scott Strickland, or I know somebody on the board of supervisors.
I actually do live down the street from Scott Strickland.
Well, there you go. Maybe you're the source. Maybe you're that source that I keep hearing that from.
Maybe.
But nobody really knows, and I think that's the mystery here. And what's going to make these next what guys, 4, 5, 6 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty fascinating. I will say this: timing stinks for these schools and the coaches, whoever it is. I don't think Marcus Freeman's going to leave Notre Dame, but I mean, he'd be in the same boat too. I think they got a decent chance to get in the playoff. First game's the 19th or 20th of December. When you look at the signing date and when the portal opens, I mean, it makes it really, really dicey. But I don't think it's a deal breaker either. In fact, I've talked to people who are close to a lot of these situations. It's not a deal breaker. There's a way to make it happen. Won't be easy. Will be hard. Maybe it costs you a few players in that first year, but assistants have done it. Now that's different than coaches. Kirby did it. Dan Lanning did it. Now it was I guess those were during the times when there was a 14 playoff. It didn't go as long. What's the championship game this year? Or January the what?
21st.
So you're going way into.
I figure out that Monday is, yeah.
Yeah, you're going way. That would make it difficult. But I'll repeat, I don't think it's a deal breaker.
Chris Lowe, you are the Nick Saban and Lane Kiffin whisperer. We're blessed to have you. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. It's good to be with you.
Ari, there's something that Chris said, and I've talked to him about this before offline. I don't know that he's written this yet. I don't know that he's put this out here. So he may have been breaking a little news on our show that Lane Kiffin was the top target for Florida State if Mike Norvell had gotten the Alabama job. Because remember, when Nick Saban retired, Greg Byrne went looking, and his two targets were Kalen DeBoer and Mike Norvell. Now, Mike Norvell agreed to a new contract very quickly. I don't know if DeBoer or Norvell was the first choice. They were the two top options. It may have been that DeBoer was the guy all along, but Norvell parlayed it into a very big contract. Had they lost Norvell to Alabama, it sounds like Florida State would have gone after Lane, and it sounds like he would have listened. And that is really interesting.
It also sounds like Florida State could be in this sweepstakes.
I view Florida State like an SEC or a Big Ten job, even though it's in the ACC, because I suspect it will be in one of those other leagues before all is said and done.
Do you think that Florida State is a distant third between those two? Or distant fourth if you add Penn State into the mix?
I think Penn State fits in with those jobs. I think Florida State does too. But the thing is, and this is what Chris was talking about and what Nick Saban was talking about, the ceiling at Ole Miss is no different now. It's no different.
I think I wish I would have pinned him down a little bit more. Is there a way that you can accurately project how much money you will have on an annual basis at your disposal when it comes to NIL? Or is it based on enthusiasm? Is it based on how well you're doing?
No, I think you'll be able to project it. That will get more accurate and scientific as they go. And I think they're going to eventually figure this out. Like, they keep hoping this bill will pass through Congress. It's not going to pass as currently written. If it ever gets passed, it'll be a severely different version of it that doesn't give them all the control they want. They're going to eventually have to collectively bargain this thing with the athletes, and then they'll have a real salary cap. So, I don't think they're that far off. We're probably talking about within the next 10 years, you all know how much money you have.
Yeah, but the main crux of the issue here, though, for Lane Kiffin or anybody else who is going to be considering jobs is, how much money am I going to have at my disposal in my window that I'm going to have to be successful in, which is the next 3 years?
Yeah. And the thing is that I think they can give you a pretty accurate estimate of that. And
how
Lane,
would you rank them? Are they all relatively similar, or does one team?
I think they're going to be relatively similar.
That's right. So then it gets back to when ranking jobs, if they're all relatively similar in terms of the resources they're willing to allocate to NIL funds, then you go back to old world thinking, which is geography, proximity to talent, administrative buy-in, location, conference affiliation, history, all the things that we used to look at when it came to ranking jobs. if they're all equal there, then what makes, Florida a better job than Florida State? What makes Florida, and I think conference affiliation now means more than it ever has. So,
right. And Florida being in the SEC and Florida State still being the ACC is a huge help for Florida. I do suspect that Florida State's going to get into one of these or whatever is next. Florida State will be part of whatever's next.
So if you feel good about that, then are you Lane Kiffin? Are you saying, well, we don't know how this year is going to end. Like Ole Miss could win the SEC. This could be his first Power Four.
He may stay at Ole Miss. I keep telling people that, and I know like Florida fans really don't want to hear that, and LSU fans don't want to hear that. He might stay at Ole Miss.
What if he goes 2-2 in the next 4 games, which we don't think is going to happen?
But it's not going to happen. Yeah.
But I'm just saying we have to at least exhaust all possibilities. Do you think that there is any part of him or any other coach in his position that would look at Florida State and go, man, I would much rather play in the ACC for my own health, my own happiness, my own.
No, I don't think so. I think they would take the SEC, the Big Ten job, or win one of the SEC or Big Ten jobs. So, but I do think if Florida State opens, it will be a very popular job among coaches. I think there'll be a lot of coaches who want the job, who feel like you can win a national title there, even when they're in the ACC. And also they will look to the future and think there's a brighter future. But I go to the Warchant message board. Kingy74 on the Warchant message board says, I'm putting it out there. Kliff Kingsbury for head coach. Now, remember, Mike Norvell still has a job, but the Florida State fans have already moved past that. They're not worried. They're thinking, who's next? If Wake Forest comes in and wins on Saturday, the administration will probably be thinking who's next. And I would suspect, because you're just watching what Florida did in the waning days of the Billy Napier tenure, you start working on that before you actually decide to fire the coach. So due diligence is probably being done. So Kliff Kingsbury, we all remember Kliff. He is the offensive coordinator to Washington Commanders now, former Arizona Cardinals head coach, former Texas Tech head coach, devastatingly handsome. Also the guy who told me to watch Peaky Blinders. Interesting. And so I'll forever love him for that.
I still have never seen that show.
You're missing out. I say all that to say this, because I love Kliff as a human being. He might be mad after I say this, though. What are you thinking, Kingy74? Like, do you not remember that Kliff Kingsbury was a college head coach? And what about his performance as a college head coach makes you want to put him in charge of a team that you expect to win the national title? Like, Ari, I'm going to give you a little trivia question. What was Kliff Kingsbury's record as a head coach in college with Patrick freaking Mahomes as his quarterback?
How many years was that? Was that over a 2-year period?
2+. He took over at the end of his freshman season.
Was he like 15 and 18 or something?
13 and 15.
Yeah. Okay. I'm bad at math.
Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback, with potentially, like, when all is said and done, Patrick Mahomes may be the greatest quarterback who ever played the sport. 13-15.
Yeah. I mean, I have nothing really to push back on, other than like maybe Mahomes didn't find his greatness until he got to the NFL. But even then,
he threw for over 800 yards in a game they lost.
He was also a first-round pick, so it's not like he wasn't good. So I don't know.
But the job of Kliff Kingsbury at Texas Tech, secondarily to create first-round picks, but primarily to win games, and he didn't win a lot of them.
I don't know, man. It was a different time. I don't know, like
I don't give it. This is not just directed at Kingy74 and the other, because I will say credit to the other folks on the Warchant board. Many of them responded very quickly with, he didn't win at Texas Tech. What makes you think he'd win here? But several of them did chime in like, oh, he could be pretty good, but does he want to leave the NFL? No, wrong question. And this is just a pet peeve of mine. Stop guessing people whose names you know just because you know them.
Right. That's what it is. And being handsome helps. Also, I just want to say, as we're talking about Kliff Kingsbury, that picture that they posted the Arizona Cardinals official account
at his house in his living room on draft night
during the draft is my peak human existence. Like, honestly, like at that point, everything else that happens in his life is like, you won.
Yeah.
But so if you're mad at Andy and you're listening to the show and that bothers you, just look back at that picture and just love the fact that you got to exist in that world. Because I would love
I still love you for introducing me to Tommy Shelby and the Peaky effing blinders. But no, I just like Florida State is a program that should expect to compete for national titles.
I mean, in fairness, if the Commanders are going to entrust him in the development and leadership of the most valuable asset potentially in the moment in the NFL, then he probably could try to be a coach in college again somewhere. I just don't know.
He could, but there's this thing called defense.
Yeah.
And they were allergic to it back then.
I just don't understand why coaches can't hire a badass defensive coordinator and let them cook. I've always been confused by that. Like, why can't
that may have been the budget at Texas Tech at the time? I don't know. All I know is
the other theory about the Big 12 that I've been dying to share with you is that all the best athletes in Texas high school football are put on the offensive side of the ball, and the entire Big 12 uses Texas high school football as their main talent source. And I feel like the personality of the way that high school football is played in the state transcended up into the college.
But are you talking about the Big 12 of 2015? Like the Big 12 now has good defenses.
About the Kliff Kingsbury of 2015 too, though.
Oh, that's true. Well, and it's interesting because you know who around that time, I guess before the scandal broke, said we've got it all wrong here in Texas and we need to start taking some of these 6'2" receivers and making them corners, was Art Briles.
Yeah.
When he was the head coach at Baylor, I had this conversation with him. Like, he's like, we keep making them receivers. Like, if we just made a few of them corners, they might become first round picks. That's what everybody wants a 6'2" corner.
Yeah. Also, I don't know when this happened, this trend in college football. I got a firsthand look at it, like when I was covering Urban Meyer. I don't know that he was the godfather of this, but he's certainly engaged in it, like in the 2010, 2012, 13, 14 era. But there was a point in time where college coaches were just like, we're going to recruit the best freak athletes ever, and then we'll find their spot when they get here. Oh, you're a quarterback in high school? I'm going to turn you into an outside linebacker, and you're going to become.
But that's always happened. Like the best athlete at every school gets, plays quarterback and free safety, and then they get to college and get moved somewhere else.
Like the athlete phenomenon. Everybody played quarterback. That wasn't the point. The point is that like you have a certain body type, and this new body type started playing new positions.
But yeah, but the text, like the Kliff Kingsbury thing at Florida, no, guys, and it's the same thing. Like you've heard of John Gruden, so you're like, what about John Gruden? I spoke to the quarterback club in Gainesville last night, the group you spoke to a couple weeks ago. It was great. I love those guys. But first question out of the gate, what about Dabo Sweeney for Florida? I was like, have you watched this Clemson team this year? How do you think that would go at Florida? And they're like, but he won a national title. I'm like, okay, so did Mac Brown.
Okay, I have to do this because it makes perfect sense with what we're talking about right now. If you name the top 10 head coaches in college football right now, how many would Florida fans or Florida State fans have heard of before they took the job as the head coach?
Not many.
Is it zero?
Like Florida fans might have known who Dan Lanning was because he was Georgia's defensive coordinator and they played Georgia every year.
But would not have come up at the quarterback club discussion.
Would they have known Ryan Day before Ryan Day took over for Urban Meyer? Nope. I don't think so.
Nobody knows who coordinators are outside of their conference or, I don't know. I don't think an Ohio State.
I think everybody knew Kirby when he was Saban's coordinator, at least after a period of time.
Who Nick Saban was. But did anybody know who Mike Elko was? Like, I'm
not sure people knew who Mike Elko was when he was Duke's head coach.
Right.
Now the A&M fans did because he had been their coordinator. But like let's say if you just said the average LSU fan on the day that Mike Elko got hired at Texas A&M, do you know who Mike Elko is? They might not have known.
So maybe we should be focusing on like letting the process play out and just like hope that whoever they hire you've never heard of, because that's probably a better. If you think about all the retread hires that have happened in college football, like the Herm Edwards to ASU one is like the most prolific one to me. It's like, we're going to hire Herm Edwards. Why? Because he's on TV and I know who.
Well, the Florida State fans would have heard of the guy who replaced Herm Edwards before he got the job, Kenny Dillingham, because he was their OC for a minute.
Right. And Oregon too. Yeah, Memphis. Yeah. You see what I'm saying though? It's just like,
yeah, I do.
Edwards. I've heard of him.
Just because you've heard of him does not mean that they're going to be good.
Nothing.
And like the Dabo thing, Dabo at one point was maybe the best coach in the sport, but he's not right now. He's got to prove to Clemson that he can evolve.
If you have heard of them and they are available, there is a reason why.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to put it. Great way to put it. All right. Back to the Megaboard. And actually, this is another person. Because when this person got hired in his first head coaching job, I was not even aware he wanted to be a head coach. I knew of him. I knew him as an assistant. I obviously knew him as a player. But when he got hired, I was not even aware that he was trying to become a head coach. And now he's a head coach, very beloved where he is. Let's throw up this post from VolQuest. It says, LSU hot board. Look who is on it. There's an LSU hot board floating around with Josh Heupel's name on it. And Ari, I got to tell you, I got a phone call yesterday from somebody who was saying, you should watch Josh Heupel for these some of these openings, like Penn State or LSU or Florida. And this was not Josh Heupel's agent, by the way.
Do you ever feel like a pawn in an agent's scheme?
Yes.
Okay.
And like I said, this was not Josh Heupel's agent. I would not be telling you it was.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be saying this if it was Josh Heupel's agent. I would be taking that very seriously.
How many phone calls do you take a day from people who have a motive?
Not as many as Nakos or Lowe, but it's up there.
Yeah. That's the hardest part of the job. But listen, let's
yes, because you texted me this. Like, am I breaking the trust tree if I reveal what you texted to me and Producer River this morning?
Yeah, no, go for it.
Okay, I'm trying to find it because I just got very mad reading it on behalf of Vol Twitter.
Yeah, I'm not trying to upset Vol Twitter. But it just
I hate to bring this up because this is Ari texting. I hate to bring this up because of River. River's our producer. He's a Vol for life. But if Heupel wins on Saturday, does he become a top candidate for LSU? Or why isn't he brought up more? Woodward likes to take big swings. Oh my God.
Am I insane?
You're kicking the beehive.
No, I know, but let's put it this way.
No, you're not insane. Josh Heupel's a really good coach, and yes, everyone should consider him.
LSU was unable to make the college football playoff in 4 years of Brian Kelly. He's done it twice at Tennessee.
Maybe.
But
Vol Twitter will disown you for this, as Producer River is texting us right now, and I believe they will. Ari, you are treading dangerous ground here.
Listen,
I don't disagree with you on the quality of Josh Heupel as a head coach because he's a great head coach.
He's a good coach. I haven't said you should go. Why would you get mad at me for liking your coach?
Well, here's my thing. It's interesting because I've watched the discourse between the Florida fans and Lane Kiffin over the last week or so, and all the Florida fans are just sending Lane Kiffin pictures of Vaught Hemingway next to pictures of the swamp, and like pictures of the empty student section at Vaught Hemingway during a game. Like, no one can send those pictures to Josh Heupel. Like, the only pictures of Neyland Stadium they can send to Josh Heupel are like the one that's on screen now, like full with fireworks exploding out of it.
I love that we're talking about this as we're heading into an elimination game Saturday against Oklahoma. Dark mode is what they're calling it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've never seen a game there. I've been outside of the stadium. I've been to Knoxville with you. Dylan Sampson is a running back on my favorite NFL team now. We danced with him last year. I've got a lot of great things to say about Tennessee, as you know, Vol Twitter. In the hierarchy discussion that we were having to begin the show with Chris Lowe and after, we discuss what are good jobs. Nick Saban brought this up, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean for Tennessee?
Tennessee's a great freaking job. They'll give you whatever you need.
Tennessee is a great job with an iconic stadium and a crazy, lovable fan base. They've already made the playoff last year when other teams that are looking for head coaches haven't. They might make it again. I think you can make the case that they probably will make it again this year.
Yeah.
So you said I was going to make Tennessee fans mad, and I might. But let's get this out of the way first. He should be on the list, right? You agree with that? That he should? If
yes,
they win?
I do agree with that.
Okay.
Just in objectively performance-based.
And
if you're taking a huge swing, yes.
Any sane human being, Tennessee fan, maybe that's mutually exclusive. I don't know. You have a good coach. Can you just acknowledge that? That's all I want you to do. That's as far as I want you to go. You've got a good coach that people should want.
When I don't know, I just reflexively got mad when you sent it to me for them, because I think right now, if you are at Tennessee and you are getting the team to the playoff, like you got them to the playoff last year, you might be able to get them to the playoff this year. You're insane if you leave.
Okay.
Because they will give you what you need. Like what Nick Saban was talking about, like, are they going to give you what you need? Tennessee will give you what you need.
Okay. So now we're going to get to the uncomfortable part of the question. Because I think in the aggregate, it's like, yeah, I agree with that, what you just said. We're talking about LSU. Okay.
Right.
And we're talking about a team that you have routinely and I have routinely ranked in the top 3 of jobs in America.
But you've already got Tennessee in the playoff. You're going to get what you need.
I'm not saying go to Florida. I'm not saying go to Ole Miss. If LSU calls you, offers you a raise, and says we want you to be our head coach, a good faith discussion right now about whether or not you should do that.
Maybe.
Because I know
maybe
we want to.
It's the same conversation as Lane. It really is. It's not different.
I think I would rather have the Tennessee job than the Ole Miss job. So in terms of the hierarchy, I think that Tennessee is very much if Ole Miss,
if you're already in the playoff at one of these, one or the other, Tennessee, LSU, Florida, if you're already in the playoff or you have a program where it's set up that every year you're going to be competitive for the playoff, I don't think you leave. I think also you're good where you are.
Has a beautiful state. I think a more robust fan base. It's a larger university, if I'm not mistaken. The stadium's insane. The facilities are insane. I don't know. I think that they've got more talent in the state of Tennessee, though it's a more complicated place to maybe recruit because of the length.
It's getting more talented. It actually used to not be very talented, but it's getting more talented.
Mississippi is shockingly not as talented as the other surrounding states in the South either.
Mississippi's very talented.
It's a smaller state, and they don't have top 100 players at the same right. Maybe per capita, but there's not a lot of population, so it doesn't really
correct.
So
and Nashville Nashville is what Atlanta was in the 90s, where the population is just exploding, and
the private school situation there is probably getting bigger, and I don't know. But if Ole Miss can convince Lane Kiffin to not take the LSU job, then Tennessee certainly could convince Josh Heupel not to. I'm not saying it's a no doubt about it type scenario. But the only thing, if we're keeping track, Ball Twitter, and if you want to turn on me, then I had a good run, is one, you've got a really good and attractive coach that people should want, which I hope that you would want for yourself. And then two, I'm also just having the good faith discussion about the hierarchy of jobs and that LSU probably ranks higher on that hierarchy. And it's not probably. We can pull up our off-season.
No, it does. If you do the job rankings, it does.
Did you have Tennessee in the top 10 of your job rankings in this offseason? I don't think you did.
I didn't. Maybe I didn't.
I don't think you did, but I know what you had in the top 3. So it's not an insane notion. I'm just surprised because I'm not saying he should go. I'm not saying he will go. I'm not even saying that they'll offer him the job. All I am saying is I'm surprised that Josh Heupel's name has not come up more in
I think it's been, and I think what Nick Saban said, it's been compressed. The difference between job 1 and job 20 has been compressed considerably.
Yeah. And listen, I think if you wanted to have a head-to-head debate about whether Tennessee is a better job than Alabama or Michigan, Alabama probably not, right? Because it's Alabama, but Michigan and Oklahoma and Penn State and Clemson and the other ones that are on our top 10, you can have a good faith discussion about that, right? I think that you could put Tennessee number 7 and nobody's going to go, what the hell? So it's a great job. And if you're winning there, you're going to be a hero. You brought the program back. There's a lot of reasons to stay. I understand that. But the real heart of the text that I sent you this morning, and I'm sorry, River, who's wearing a Vols hoodie right now, is that, are you surprised that his name has not organically, they might be trying to shove it out there now to get a raise, but not organically come up more? That's the only thing I thought. That's all. That's the whole text was.
I guess I am surprised, but it's also one of those that because he's in a place where he's beloved and they do give him what he needs, like it's you don't put your name out there like that. Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly did not publicly put their names out there before they left Oklahoma and Notre Dame, respectively. They just left. They kept it quiet. And in fact, during the negotiations, the schools were told, you must keep this quiet. If any of this leaks, if you breathe any of this, deals off, they're just staying where they are. So that's, if Heupel was interested, and I have no idea if he is or not, if he was, it's the sort of thing you'd probably want to keep quiet. So I don't know, but it is a legitimate discussion. I'm kind of having fun with this because I know how Vol Twitter is going to feel, and I'm wanting them to direct all the anger at you.
And if the anger does come my way, what would the statement be that makes the anger come? What did I say?
How dare you think that he would leave us for them? That's it.
Fair enough.
That's it. By the way,
I didn't say that either,
if you'd like to see the dark mode game in Knoxville this weekend, and that may be the best, highest stakes game of the weekend, Oklahoma at Tennessee, download the Gametime app, redeem the code STAPLES for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. You can get tickets at Neyland Stadium this weekend. They are there, available. They're not the cheapest tickets in the world. You can get in for the low 200s. If you want to sit somewhere real nice, you're talking maybe in the 400s. But this is a big matchup between two teams that are fighting for a chance to stay alive in the college football playoff race. Winner will still be alive. Loser probably will not be. Download the Gametime app. Redeem the code STAPLES for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Get you to the game. Swipe, tap, ticket, go with Gametime. All right, Ari. Let's revisit the Megaboard. This is maybe my favorite. You suggested this yesterday, and you said go find me something on the Notre Dame board about Brian Kelly and LSU, and I did. The theme from Blue and Gold. We are all laughing at LSU. Now, I want to point out the date that this thread began, because it was not when they fired Brian Kelly on Sunday night, Ari. It was nor was it when Texas A&M beat LSU on Saturday night. It was actually when Vanderbilt beat LSU last week. And it is just the Ron Burgundy gif. We are laughing at you.
Yeah, 49 pages deep, probably.
It went for a while when it was posted, and then it sprang back to life during the LSU Texas A&M game and then rolled.
So the reason I wanted you to find this, though, is because I read a really interesting story, column, I should say, from our former colleague at The Athletic, Pete Sampson, who does a great job covering Notre Dame. And it was more about like what happened at LSU and what it means for Notre Dame, because it's so easy. And I feel like we get a lot of this too with Oklahoma, fans directing their laughing at USC as their coach currently is treading pretty lightly in terms of maybe falling through back onto the hot seat. Is that like there is this Schadenfreude that is a spirit of college football, and that you always, if your coach leaves you, you want them to fail wherever they go. I get that. But I do think that there is a prevailing notion, and Pete wrote about this, about what Brian Kelly did at Notre Dame, and whether or not losing him was losing an asset that you could not afford to lose because your program was only accomplishing X as a result of them. And if you think that Notre Dame was all because of Brian Kelly and the success in the 2 playoff appearances, in general, now you can look and say, well, he went to a place that has what we thought, or what the college football world thought, had more resources in a more advantageous geographical spot and a more competitive conference, and not as nearly stringent academic standards to get in, and did not make it through 4 years, while the coach that replaced him made it to the playoff. And I think that the prevailing notion should be not that, Brian Kelly sucks or whatever. Everybody can have their opinion on Brian Kelly, whatever it is. But I think that at least Notre Dame stands prevailing in a sense that the place was not holding him back.
No. Notre Dame was not the problem.
Right.
It was not, as our friend Josh Pate wrote when Kelly got hired at LSU. He had not been trying to race the Daytona 500 in a Toyota Prius. And credit to Josh, he owned that one on his show. Like he wore a clown nose and reread the post.
Yeah,
and it was brilliant.
A Prius is a highly offensive car to use in that analogy too.
Josh is very good with words, and I think that was intentional.
I would have gone with Civic if I was trying to make that point, because at least you could soup up a Civic.
You can really soup up a Civic, but Notre Dame was not the issue. As it turns out, Brian Kelly was the thing holding Notre Dame back, and Marcus Freeman comes in and unleashes a little more of the power of Notre Dame. They go to the national title game last year. There's a reason Marcus Freeman's name came up when all of these jobs came open as this is the first phone call you make, even though he's going to say no. He's clearly doing a great job there.
I've got a secondary question that's part of this topic, but is something that I've just been thinking about.
Okay.
Who's a more attractive coaching candidate right now, James Franklin or Brian Kelly, and why are their resumes basically identical?
Ooh. James Franklin.
Because Brian Kelly went to the national title, the college football playoff twice, but he also didn't play in the Big Ten. But if you go look at the record,
James Franklin is more attractive, and I'll tell you why. The stories that came out of Penn State when James Franklin was fired versus the stories that came out of LSU when Brian Kelly was fired.
Oh, you mean like just
I was on PMT on Wednesday, and Big Cat was talking about this. Like when James Franklin was fired, there's people coming out of the woodwork saying he donated to this, he helped me with this, he helped me get a job, all of this stuff. Because James Franklin truly does care about his players, and there's evidence that now he wasn't actively seeking credit for it, which is why you didn't hear a lot of that stuff until he got fired. When people were like, "Hey, everybody's bagging on this guy, but here's what he did for me." None of that with Brian Kelly. None of it.
An old ESPN article that. And I can't remember who the head coach or the coaches in the NFL were, but apparently they were old NFL coaches or NFL head coaches that used to work under Brian Kelly back in the day. And they said that in the lead of the ESPN story was that he invited them over to a party and that they had to shovel. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes. And didn't they also have to park cars or something like that?
Cars, or they shoveled it all night, and then they went home and they were like, I think they were grad assistants. I don't even remember what program it was. It might have been, very early in his career in the MAC.
Central Michigan or Grand Valley State or something, yeah.
I think it was Central Michigan. And these two coaches who went on to be very successful, and I wish I could remember who they were grad assistant roommates, and they went home after that night, and they said that they stood at this kitchen island, and they told each other, "We will never treat people like this if we ever get to Brian Kelly's level." And I thought that was like a powerful, because there are a lot of other things, and we're not going to discuss those other things that people say about Brian Kelly. But he doesn't strike me I think that the part of the reason why he hasn't been
Robert Salah and Matt LaFleur. So the current coach of the Green Bay Packers and the current defensive coordinator of the 49ers, who was the Jets head coach.
Right. Thank you for looking that up.
Yeah.
I think the part of the reason why Brian Kelly has not been an overly likable figure in the sport isn't only because he gets a red face on the sideline and because there's a certain personality trait that just tends to rub people the wrong way. I think there's a general understanding that people don't think he's a good dude. And I don't know I don't know him, so I'm not saying that he isn't. These aren't my stories. I'm just telling you, I saw the reaction that you just alluded to. And I wonder what that will mean for him in his quest to see what's next, or if this is it for him. I don't know if he's going to get another job. Maybe he will. I don't know if he wants to. We'll see.
Well, I also wonder with Brian Kelly, and then Jimbo Fisher's actively seeking a job right now. What is the floor of the level of job that they would take? Because I do think there are schools that would hire them. I'm just not sure they are schools that they would want to work for.
Would Brian Kelly take the Virginia Tech job or something?
I think he would.
Would Jimbo Fisher?
I do think he'd take that one. Yeah. I've been told Jimbo Fisher would take a high level G5 job. So if Memphis or Tulane's open, he would be interested.
Would Jimbo Fisher be interested in Oregon State? Probably
Good question. Not. I don't know that because it's not his part of the country.
Yeah,
but maybe. I thought we were calling that Orgeron State. I thought that was Coach O's job.
Yeah, no, Coach O's job's in Baton Rouge, but I just don't know why you haven't started the groundswell.
Maybe because the AD who fired him is still working there.
If I were at Orgeron, I'd be like, I can't do this. I'm going to try to do the Cajun impression. Can I try?
You can try.
I mean, every single time, I can't do it. You try.
Oh, they get
every single time.
Like, remember when the sideline reporter did the Coach O impression? They got very mad about that. I'm not going to do that.
I just wanted to sound like him, not to mock him, but to sound like him, so that you could hear him.
You just got to get some gravel in your voice, and you got to say Tiger.
Every single time they talk about how many coaches back they used to work for the Tigers won national titles, my name comes up because I won a national title. Here I am. I'll take the job. What?
See, you sound like a cross between Coach O and Steve Spurrier, which is fascinating.
That's good. That's what I was going for. But I would be kind of annoyed.
I'm trying to imagine what that coach would be like.
The joys of the LSU job and how the last 3 coaches before Brian Kelly were there won national titles, and it's like, quit using me as a prop. I did it. I'm not a candidate. Like, leave me out of it. I would be bothered by that.
I'd be like, just don't misspell my name.
Yeah, just
Yeah, as producer River reminds us via text, they did fire Coach O pretty quickly. I want to say it was 20 or 21 months after the national title game. He was fired. It was probably a little quick on the trigger there.
I'm a very impressionable person, and I get very moved by people. I was moved by him when he was on our show, and he like made me feel like he could do a good job anywhere. And he made me feel like he loves football, because I know that he does. And like, I think that the number one qualification that you should have for your head coach is just loving the game. And I don't know if that's even a harder thing to find now, because there's so much administrative spreadsheet, NIL.
That's the thing. To be a head coach at the highest level, the game is such a secondary part of it.
It's not about wearing your helmet at breakfast anymore.
No, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. One more, Ari, and this is not from the Megaboard. This is from Megabook. This one's from Facebook.
Yeah.
Man, I don't spend much time on Facebook.
I didn't even know you had a Facebook.
I do. I don't know why. Maybe to see if, which high school classmates have gained a lot of weight. That's probably it. But
all of them?
Most of them. But
the smoke shows from my Facebook. School,
the
absolute dime pieces from my high school, 85% of them are still 10s. I don't know what happened. Maybe it's just the area of the country I grew up in.
Scottsdale, baby. That's Scottsdale.
I was like, oh, okay. Okay.
I joke about my high school, but I went to my 10-year reunion and I felt like the biggest failure, because it was like doctor, lawyer, doctor, lawyer. So there were some very successful people in my high school.
My 20 years this year?
My 30 years next year.
My 20 years happening in Scottsdale on a college football Saturday this fall.
Well, fire all of those people, because that is no good.
Yeah.
So on Facebook, there's some pretty incredible stuff I'm learning. This is something that was floating around Facebook this week. This is the Brent Venables version. There's also a Ty Simpson version. So we've talked about the Brent Venables press conference after the Ole Miss game in light of what Lane Kiffin did, making fun of that, because somebody asked him about Venables saying that Oklahoma was actually the better team, and Lane just rattles off all the times that he's beaten Ole Miss he's beaten Oklahoma as either the head coach or actually we've got that video. Let's play that video.
Lane, a big win on the road against Oklahoma. Just curious as your thoughts following the game. Coach Brent Venables said he felt like he had the better team. Just your overall thoughts on that.
That's an interesting take. That's a hot take. You have a better team. I wouldn't have thought that people watching would say that. I felt that we won at their place, and whether that as a defensive head coach you would normally, wish for, and won by 8 points. And I think we left a lot out there. I think we should have won by a couple scores. So I don't know how he evaluated that game, that they were the better team. I mean, we had way more yards, 21 first downs to 14, and we played 87 plays of offense, and they had 1 sack and didn't force any turnovers. That's a interesting take, but whatever he needs to say.
And also following up to road trips.
Maybe
to Georgia.
Maybe they had the better team last year too. when we beat them. Sorry.
Yes, sir. Following up, on the road against Georgia.
Maybe we had the better team in Oklahoma when we beat them 55-19 in the national championship. Maybe. Maybe we had the better team at Clemson when we beat them 45-40 in the national championship at Alabama. Next question, my bad. You got me on that.
If Lane Kiffin had known what Facebook told me about this Brent Venables press conference, and I can't even imagine what our guys Eddie Radosevich and George Stoya and Kerry Murdoch were doing when this happened. But Facebook told me what really happened during the Ole Miss post-game press conference at Oklahoma for Brent Venables. So I'll read it. Sooner State Legacy is who posted it. Breaking news. Brent Venables took a stand last night that no one saw coming, but no one will ever forget. Midway through his post-game press conference in Oklahoma, as a handful of anti-American chants began outside the stadium, the Sooners head coach didn't shout back. He didn't walk off. Instead, he stood tall, took the mic, and began softly singing God Bless America. At first, it was just him, one voice, calm and steady. But within seconds, players, staff, and reporters joined in, their voices swelling into a thunderous, united chorus that echoed through the hallways. Flags waved. Tears fell. The chants outside faded into silence. Oklahoma didn't just reclaim the moment. He reminded everyone what it means to lead with grace, not rage. Ari, this obviously never happened. I was in that room at Oklahoma a few weeks ago. There's not a chance in hell you could hear anything that was going on outside the stadium. But your grandma believes this happened. Your dad probably, you're muted, Ari.
You want to know why? Because I'm in the second story and I've got a freaking tree with branches are really tall, and every single time a wind gust comes, it scrapes against my window, and it sounds awful, and I don't want to ruin the podcast. Sorry.
So instead, you're ruining it this way. But
yes, but it's better than hearing it.
Yes. So, but yes, my grandparents aren't alive anymore, but your grandparents, listeners and viewers, believe this stuff. They believe this. I would have loved if it had happened. Like, can you imagine? Like, imagine this, Ari. We've got the hot seat bowl this weekend. What if Hugh Freeze does lose to Kentucky?
He should sing.
And he's in his post-game press. You be the reporter, and I'll be Hugh Freeze. You ask me a question about losing to Kentucky.
Hugh, you've mentioned throughout the course of the season that you felt as if Auburn was getting closer or was close to, breaking through and winning a bunch of games. You've made some changes at the quarterback position. You've made some changes with schematic, adjustments, but the result continues to stay the same. Do you feel like you're fit to be the head coach of Auburn anymore?
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above.
And people
from the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with foam.
I'm crying.
God bless America,
I'm emotional.
my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. John Cohen's not firing me after that.
You are the songbird of your generation.
You didn't think I'd sing the whole thing, did you?
No.
You didn't think I knew the words, did you?
No, I knew that. You know everything.
I'm a patriot, man. Love you guys. We'll talk to you on Thursday.